Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly podcast featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from fresh perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 297, Learning to Flow. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I'm here today in Anderson Studios, a division of the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. And it's a wonderful day today. I'm so happy to be broadcasting here from Orlando, Florida, wishing you well wherever you might be. And I wanted to do a shout out this morning to Miami, Florida. We definitely have some listeners in Miami and a great group of followers down there. And there are wonderful spiritual communities down there. There's a Center for Spiritual Living, Unity, and many other denominations. I find that concentrated cities have really interesting people and a variety of spiritual journeys and paths. And if you've been listening to the show for long, you know we love to discuss that. And just last week, I believe, was the show that was about your authentic spiritual journey, which really was about just that, honoring your path, your history, and really owning your spiritual journey. So anyway, welcome, dear friends. Happy to have you along the journey today. And I often say, happy to have you along the drive. Many people that listen tell me they listen as they drive, some as they work, some as they work out, which I think are all cool things. So we're happy to have you along the journey today. And believe it or not, dear friends, this is the last Monday in February. Wow, February 26th, Monday, 2024. And this is the Authentic Spiritual Journey, show 297. The title of today's show is Learning to Flow. Learning to Flow. This is a real important one for me today, my friend. Very, very important. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a deep breath right now, remembering that as I breathe, I move into the flow so much more easily, effortlessly, really. What I've been reflecting on the last few days here, and today it's hit me very strongly, is how the whole world seems to want to make us rush right now. Everything is rush, 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 instant, 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 everything, and multitask like crazy. I don't know, does it seem that way to you? That everybody wants a rush decision? I don't know, a few years ago, I was going through a time where every time I got done with work, I was really tired. And it just so happened around that same time, I was listening to National Public Radio, and evidently, there is something called decision fatigue. And it was at the end of a week where, you know, when I heard this, where I had decision after decision, and they were all tiny, what I would call micro decisions, just tiny decisions about a lot of things. And by the end of the day, I was exhausted, and I couldn't figure out why, because I hadn't really, physically done a lot. I had gotten sleep the night before. I'd eaten well and hydrated and all those things you kind of think about when you're feeling fatigued. So, and I would like to say that since then, I feel like that's different. But the truth is, in the world at large, I feel like in general, it's only gotten worse. I don't know if it's an aspect of the kind of ordering we do for everything, that everything is super instant, and we can order anything at the touch of a button and get it within 24 hours or less, sometimes the same day. Is it because we are trying to be more present to our kids, and there's a variety of things to be done in a given day, including laundry and lunches and dinners, as well as trying to work a full-time job, sometimes from home? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Why does the world seem to be in a rush? What I know about all this rushing is that it is not being in the flow. I also know when I'm rushed, it means that there's probably a component of anxiousness. I don't have anxiety like as a issue, but I'm saying anytime you're rushed, you're feeling pushed in some way. I was talking with a friend the other day about now that when you go to buy a cell phone, it seems as if you're buying a car, and actually a used car. You feel pushed into buying things you're not really sure you want or need. It seems to me as if this rushing is money-based. Meaning, if I can pressure you into making a quick decision, in other words, with your emotions, not thinking through it, then I'll get the sale, I'll get the money, and hopefully you'll be happy with what it is you buy, right? So, yeah, I'm just really feeling that right now. And I want to lift it up for all of us. And of course, I'm doing this for myself as well. Like anyone, I live in the culture. Like anyone, I have to order things from time to time. And I love getting things quickly. So it's easy to move into like a general awareness that everything has to be fast and that I have to do 2 or 3 things at once. Like, I don't know, do you remember when we only used to watch TV? We're not also on a device or an iPad or a tablet. You remember that? It wasn't too long ago. Deep breath, friends, deep breath. Not too long ago, I had a little injury on my back. I was just using a warm compress on my back today. It's a self-care thing I do from time to time. And it was interesting. I noticed that throughout the course of my day, when I had to rest my back a little bit, it was a time to kind of pause, reflect, and get back into a little bit more spiritual flow. I would do some deep breaths. And frankly, it brought me into a little bit of a flow state, into a more of a beingness and awareness of what was coming up. And it really began to inform my morning spiritual practice as well, because I was already doing deep breathing with that practice. But as I was kind of nursing my back, just nurturing it a little bit with a little heat, it was like touching into that morning energy a little bit. So what does it mean to flow? And you see that the title is Learning to Flow, right? And the reason that's the title is I'm still learning it. I don't live perfectly in a flow state. I don't know anyone who does. That said, I'm learning to return to it more often. A sign I'm not in the flow state is fatigue. A sign I'm not in the flow state is fatigue. So if we know what it isn't, let's talk about what it is. For me, being in the flow includes a sense of peace. It includes a state of awareness where I'm not only aware of what I think and feel, I'm aware of what's happening around me. I'm aware of energies, even. I am able to distinguish between my adult self, my spiritual self, and wounds of the past. And I'm able to move into that state with more ease and grace. So for me, flow is about, it's a state of beingness with which I can walk through the world. It is also, it's a feeling though, and the feeling is, as I was writing the show notes, I said, the feeling of it is really like a feeling of being lighter, so to speak. It doesn't feel like there's no heaviness to it. It feels light It feels like love. And the word that keeps coming to me is it feels spacious internally. It feels spacious internally. I wanted to pause as I'm talking about this internal spaciousness and say, I came off a week that did not feel spacious. And there were about 4 or 5 days in a row where I was either called upon as a parent, as a speaker, as a teacher, as a friend, as a family member. It just seemed like 4 or 5 days in a row, there was always something for me to do. And during that time, because I was out of town, I was also not doing my normal workouts. And even though I was starting the day with the spiritual practice, it was very shortened because of the tremendous schedule I had. It was unreal, really. And when I got home, I realized this feeling of heaviness, and I thought, I have not had this in so long. What is off? And honestly, friends, I was not flowing. I would have moments of flow throughout the day, but I felt like I kept having to prepare for the next thing and prepare for the next thing and prepare for the next thing. And I have not lived like that for a really long time. I have created for myself a life that includes space, that every day I take time to meditate. Several days a week, I do an hour workout or more, more time at the gym. I usually take time for Epsom salt bath. And I mean, in that 4 or 5 days, none of those things were happening. And like I say, even though I had to have moments of flow because I didn't have the longer spiritual time in the morning and the variety of things that was happening, I could not maintain this flow state, this state of flow, this state of awareness, this state of beingness. And I also noticed my emotional state was starting to shift. That my emotional state was more short-tempered, that my willingness to listen to the end of a story was diminishing. So, when I am in the flow state, when I am flowing, I feel the exact opposite. A few minutes ago, I was outside and I had the opportunity before going outside to take some deep breaths, and I had moved a few things around. I was trying to get the vibe in my office to be back in a flow state because of the travel and coming in, throwing things down. It just did not feel like it normally feels. So as I got things rearranged a little bit and took some deep breaths, I noticed that when I went outside with my dog, I took some time before sitting down to record. I took some time to go outside with my dog. I noticed even the way I threw a ball to him, the way I interacted with him outside was different when I was in this state of flow. It was a wonderful feeling to be outside with my dog, and the time we were out, it was that golden hour, where the sun is just coming down, and it streams into my backyard in this real specific way on this big old laurel oak. And it was a little bit of windy day, and so the Spanish moss was moving in the breeze. And it was just a sense of awareness. It was this sense of beingness. It was light. It was spacious. And you know what, friends? Bottom line, it was happy. That moment was so full of joy, and it was so, so simple for me. So to be in the flow is to be in a state of awareness, of beingness. And it's this feeling really of light, of love. I don't know. The best word that I think encompasses all of it is the word spaciousness. It feels spacious, like there's enough room for me to breathe, right? Like I just don't have to push into the next thing. It happened too earlier today on a call. I had several client calls today, and I absolutely adore my clients. They are just fabulous people. And I had run late to one, which is very unusual. And I said, give me a second. I'm going to text the next one. And the next person, I said, I'm running late. Can I have a breather? He said, take all the time you need. I'm good. I'm not rushing to anything. And it just really blessed my life to be able to take a moment. And of course, what happened, I could be even more present in the session than I would have been. So I'm saying flow is a feeling of spaciousness. And I think it's because you have to create space within yourself internally to get there. And by that, I mean, take a deep breath. As I'm sitting here recording at this beautiful time of day, it's a little bit later in the day than I normally record. It's that golden hour I mentioned. As I breathe deeply, my whole face smiles. Like, not just a smile like, oh, hi, but it's like a feeling that I can't hide. And the only thing I've done is breathe. The only thing I've done is be still. So as I take a few deep breaths, what I'm doing is creating space internally, and that gives me this feeling of spaciousness internally, and then it impacts the way I walk out into the world. Right? So first, I have to give myself the space. And then as I walk out into the world, I take that spaciousness with me. So important. You're probably sensing it in my voice as well. I don't know, because it's hard to be it's hard to discern your own voice and what it's doing. I just know the feeling I have in my heart and my body is right now is one of light. It's one of spaciousness, for sure. For sure. So for me, it usually happens internally first. Yeah, usually happens internally first. But occasionally what will happen, I know if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know of my deep, deep love and connection to nature. And when I go into nature, I can reach this state almost instantly with one breath. I'm so connected there. And so there's a place I often walk in Orlando, and it's a beautiful gardens, and it's kind of older style. It's called Mead Gardens. It's a little bit of an older style, like kind of arboretum type place. Anyway, as I go in there, sometimes I'll just step out of my truck and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So for me, it can be very centering and spacious simply to go in nature, and then the outer environment is helping me establish that on the inner. And I think that's really important to discuss, because as much as I talk about soul work, and it is work at times, it's easy to forget how nature itself, how God, the universe, Jesus, all of those energies are seeking to help us. Jesus said, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives, give I to you. It's like when I walk out into nature, for me, this is the presence of God. This is the presence of the Christ. And in other words, I don't have to work at everything. Sometimes I get to simply be. I get to simply be. I get to be at peace. I get to flow. I get to flow. And in nature, things have to flow, right? There's a little creek by where I walk, and it reminds me of a little creek I played in growing up. So, when I was little, we lived kind of out. We had a little property. It was out in the middle of nowhere. And when we first bought it, and there was a creek that ran down, and we would dam up the creek and, jump in it and all this kind of stuff. So being near a creek is always very grounding. It feels like home. And so in this garden, I'll often, walk up around some of the gardens. They're doing some beautiful restoration work. And as soon as I get by the creek, it's like, boom, I drop into that flow state. Sometimes it happens right when I get out of the truck. Sometimes I need a minute. and I have to breathe, I have to walk, and I just naturally kind of slow my walk there. It's like I move quickly. I had an astrologer tell me one time it was the Mercury in my chart, which I totally don't understand, but I love. And she said, "You're always moving quickly." I said, "That's true." I said, "But I'm really seeking to find peace and balance with that movement." And so what I've discovered is breathing and being in nature. Those are simply two of the ways that it helps me get there. You may have a different way. Like I have a friend that loves to crochet, and like that's her jam, right? So she's going to crochet and kind of go into a flow state and lose track of time. I would lose my mind if I tried to crochet, probably. So, yeah. So think about, and I'm sure you already are, I don't need to tell you to think about, what I'm thinking about, I'll say it that way, is how often do I need to put myself in a position to hit this state? Here's what I mean by that. If I'm doing a morning practice every day, which I do not miss, sometimes it's shorter than others, but I always do it. If I'm doing that every morning, once a week, I have a real strong time in nature. And by strong, I mean more than 30 minutes, like a couple of hours. Friends, I am golden. I am in the flow. I feel like life is beautiful. I love myself. I love everyone else. Life is good. Because if I'm in nature that long, I'm feeling connected. I know that nature takes any negative energy and replaces it with positive energy. I know that if I get by the water, I'm going to sense a flow because there is water flowing right there. I'm going to breathe deeply because I'm safe. I'm at peace in this place. Right? So these are ways for me. And so I ask myself, I rework my goals, dreams, and desires. I'm always looking at those every day. And then about once a month, I'm looking at, does anything need to shift or change? And so today I realized I do not have a written down goal about how much time I'm in nature. And, for years, I didn't have anything written down. I just spent time in nature. But, as my work life started speeding up, I realized if I didn't have it as a goal and put it on my calendar, it wasn't going to happen. Right? So I had to create some kind of discipline around being in nature because it's a place I get filled up. It's a place that helps me flow with life. It helps me flow with God, with the universe, with goodness itself. So I'm taking my own inventory, friends, and telling you that my work life has sped up in 2024. I'm having a real different workflow. I'm still getting accustomed to my new workflow. And I'm having to make some shifts I didn't predict. What I know is as I breathe, I'm going to get there. As I breathe, I will be clearly guided. As I breathe deeply, I will flow. And think about this. I love that breath literally is flowing. Like it is a flow to breathe in and out. It's ebb and a flow. It's a letting go. It's a releasing. It's even a death in some way. And then it's a baptism, a new life, a new energy. Those are two polarities that are necessary, literally, for life itself. So, my friend, I hope for you that you are making time for yourself to breathe, to find this state of flow, to live from there as much as possible. My hope for you also is that you will take time to be outside or whatever your place is to connect, to be at peace, and that you can be in this state of awareness, the state of beingness where you know you're connected, where you know you're loved, and just know that there's enough space for you in the world, right? That you don't have to be rushed and multitask like crazy. You can simply be, and that is enough. So as we're ending our time together, we only have a few more minutes. I thought it might be nice if we just ended this time together by doing a few deep breaths. So the next 3 or 4 minutes, all we'll do is simply breathe. I'll say a word at the end, so you don't have to worry about what time it is. I'll keep track. But my hope for you, dear friend, is that you learn to live life in the flow. And that as we're on this journey together, we'll learn to flow together. And life will have more fun, more joy, more light, and more space for us. And so if you can, wherever you are, I invite you to breathe. Breathe as deeply as possible, allowing your mind and your body to become still. So as we breathe together, we know that we are connecting with God, with light, with nature, with all that is. My hope for you, dear friend, as you breathe, that you will feel this feeling of spaciousness, of light, of love, of peace, and that you will flow with life, and that you will find this inner joy, this inner happiness. Blessings on the journey, my friend. See you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2024, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.